You guys had,
Sorry.
that's okay. You had an ice storm, and I think it shut down your entire city. And we come from New York, and ice means you drive faster. So I know Atlanta and that area somewhat. But tonight, I'm after, I hate to say it, 55 years of pushing the shutter and going through everything from film to every camera you can imagine. I probably have 500 cameras, and I try to use them as best I can, if I can. Other ones are just, little display things, but I just keep seeing, and the object is to get what I see on a piece of film or on a digital sensor, and it just keeps me going. It's my art. It's my life. People keep saying, "When are you going to retire?" And I go, "When I get a job, then I'll retire." So I'm gonna share my screen here and get moving on. Let's see, start the slideshow here. Come on.
That's got it on there.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm Bruce Byers Photography. My travel company is Camera Odysseys, which is I do photographic adventures around the world. Most of my images are on brucebyers.com and Photo Shelter. Photo Shelter is a wonderful way of storing hundreds of photographs on the outside of your website. So your website can be this really condensed, wonderful pictures. And if someone wants to see more flowers, you could have 500 flowers on Photo Shelter. So it's kind of nice, and they could buy them. You can ship them. You can give them to clients. You do everything with it. So it's kind of nice. And it's I have my camera with me all the time. And light, tonight I wanted to talk about light, and my light lately has been Mother Nature. And I've always loved Mother Nature. I've had hundreds of strobe units. I've done thousands and thousands of advertising and catalog stuff where we've brought in tons of strobe equipment that, it's wonderful, but they blow up, and it's a lot of heavy equipment to carry around. And a lot of my work outside, especially travel in different countries I go to, first of all, there's no time to use the strobe. And second of all, the strobe is not as big as Mother Nature. And the image I'm showing you now is, I always say, always turn around. The photograph is behind you. If I turn around again, it's Buckingham Palace is behind me with 2,000 people standing behind me. And it just wasn't interesting. And I turned around, and the Trafalgar Square Guard was walking by. This is in the film, so you don't know what you're getting. And that kind of was the spark of shooting film. If you knew how to work your camera properly, if you knew how to deal with film properly, you kind of had an idea that you got it, but you didn't know until it came from the lab. And it was almost like another surprise, another enjoyment afterwards. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to me. And I do a lot of work with individuals. So earlier we were talking about, if you got anybody wants to give me a call, just give me a call. I love to talk photography, and I can take it to any level, from iPhones to how to shoot on an aircraft carrier. Because when I was asked one time, have you ever shot 16 millimeter film? Of course I have. Well, tomorrow morning we're flying out to the U.S. Nimitz to film on the U.S. Nimitz. Oh, are we? Great. So I never would have been on it if I'd say, well, nah, I really don't want to do that. So that's kind of how my life has been going. I haven't picked just portraiture or just trees. I've picked photography. When I'm at a place, I'm seeing 360 degrees. So I'm constantly looking, constantly seeing. I shoot with the Leica M6, which is my film camera. And I love shooting film. I love shooting with the Leica because of the lenses. And I even still have my own darkroom. That one print, you can make 20 prints in the darkroom. They're all going to be different. You can make 20 prints on the digital printer. They're all going to be exactly the same. So for me, that holding on to that fiber-based print is wonderful. And, knowing how to deal with a little kid here holding the camels and being able to leave this situation without 5 other kids begging for you or the father demanding money. There's so much more to it than just the image. So thank you very much for inviting me to share how I see and use light in the images I create. Nepal is actually, this is Bhutan, is incredible. And when I come into a situation, I check out everything. I happen to have been here with a group that I was teaching, and we just spread out, and everybody went off on their own, and I would just follow them around and check on what they're doing. But I've been told, why don't you use strobe? Why don't you get that darkness in the back? And I said, because the light is giving me the direction that I'm looking for. And if the lighting was not working right here, I would move on until I found it working. I wouldn't manipulate the situation. In this situation, if I had fired off a strobe, I probably would have, the people in the background would have looked, the mother would have looked, and to me, the photograph would have fallen apart. So I consider myself a documentary environmental portrait storyteller. So I love documenting. I love doing books. I've got a number of books that I've done. And I love taking that portrait within an environment which tells the story. I shoot some film. I've been shooting 16 millimeter film for years, and now I've gone into, of course, all our cameras are shooting film. But I still have a love for the still image. This was a project of I thought it was really easy. Everybody's got a Christmas tree. Yeah, I just ask them, hey, can I come in and photograph you with your Christmas tree? It had to be the hardest thing I ever did. Why do you want to do that? Oh, I don't have time. But just let me step in it. So when I came into this situation, just a simple hot light, and I would carry it in a little tiny cloth suitcase. I'd set it up and I would just shoot. And I went from different houses and photographed, and just what happened within the image was wonderful. The woman made these dolls out of some sort of take them on the tree. Her husband had Alzheimer's, so I would have to sit there and get my lighting right, but then I would have to shoot wait for them to go get him to come back into the photo. So there was more than just lighting. My nephew was a Marine. So I took the idea, let's go to New York City and walk around New York City and do portraits amongst things that related to the military or to the United States. So one of my biggest things is see with your eyes and capture with your camera. And to me, I carry the most expensive Xerox machine I could get my hands on. One of my new purchases is the Leica M10R. I wanted the high speed. I can use all my old Leica lenses on it, and it's just an incredible tool. But it's a tool. When I put my cell phone in front of my face, I'm using that as a tool. And we all know the best camera is the one that's in your hand. So we were just talking about a lot of water. Vermont got a tremendous amount of water. I got these fantastic tickets at the Mets game right in the corner of the third baseline. Well, it happened to be umbrella night. And it started pouring in the third inning. And when I do something, I want the light of that situation to be in my photograph. I don't want to manipulate it with a strobe, or I do use reflectors from time to time. But to me, the thing that makes it is the light coming in over the umbrella and lighting up the rain. And it really shows the situation. It really tells the story. I love old movies. Alfred Hitchcock. I think this is my Alfred Hitchcock guy walking through the back. I got this wonderful job to go to Italy to shoot street moments. 150 rolls of film later in 5 days, and just absolutely the most magnificent job that because I did exactly what I wanted to do. More into the line of that moment in time. And again, to me, I look for the right light. And when you're working with natural light, it's very hard to move the sun. So you got to do it in the reverse. If you're in a situation such as this and people are walking into the light that you're working with, then you got it right. And also when I document, when I photograph, I always love jokes. I mean, I call this the Cambodian supercar. The guy with the 4 girls and the guys with the 2. I mean, it's sort of like who's got it better here. And then here, the Cambodian minivan. So when I'm in a situation that I document medical missions, and I was in the OR photographing the doctors, and then I would come out into the surroundings, and I would photograph the people to try to get the atmosphere and the culture to combine with the photography that I was doing for the doctors. And it's a matter of, yes, these people were here. Do I use the lighting that is there? Yes. Do I try to manipulate it? To me, no, because then it wouldn't be the lighting of the situation. It would be something different than I was working with. Just the lighting on her face in the inside the train, I think is incredibly important. To me, I think this would not have worked if I couldn't have gotten light in there from the source that I had seen. But how would you ever get a strobe, a reflector, an HMI into a situation that this took about 1 minute to take, and that's all I had. It's Mother Nature. Learn what Mother Nature's all about. I was listening to you guys talking about the Milky Way. I've never done the Milky Way yet. Would love to go out and learn how to do that. I think it would be incredible because some of the images that come from that are just amazing. And then when you find something that's incredible, this is in Sri Lanka, and they're harvesting tea. You anticipate as she's coming along the side of the hill, she's coming into the light that I'm seeing. So if it was the other way around, she'd be in the dark and the background wouldn't have been lit. So to me, I kind of planned it out. I kind of saw what was happening. I waited for her to get into the right light. This child had just come out of the OR, and we put her in a ambulance, took her home, and they celebrated the whole field there. And I needed to take a photograph of this homecoming, and I put her in the right place. There was lots of other places I could have put her, but I knew that I needed her lit properly. And the mother, the grandmother stepped in, the little boy in the back came in, and that just added to the composition. I've been to Cuba many times, and every time I go down there, there's another situation. There's another, just another incredible adventure. And this guy led us down into his tobacco field, and I wanted to take his picture, but I didn't want just a picture of a guy standing in a tobacco field. I wanted to photograph him with the right light. And he stood there, and it was wrong. I moved to the right 2 steps. That caused him to look to the light. And just the touch of the tobacco plant, to me, just made it work. This, I probably could have used a strobe on it, but this is so funny. And, they were gone literally 2 seconds afterwards. But if I probably reprocess this, I could get more out of the guy standing up top. So a lot of people ask me, what's in your bag? What's in your bag should be what you can carry. And people say, oh, let me, they come up to me, we're doing something, we're trying to organize something, I need to move this and this, let me hold your bag. And I look at them and go, no, I got it. Because if I give them my bag and they're 25 feet over in the right, and all of a sudden the shot is right here, they've got my camera. So my bag is filled and organized so that it's comfortable for me to have it all the time. And also, nothing against the people that I'm with, but I don't trust anybody else with my equipment. If I've flown in 24 hours to someplace in Asia, I want to make sure that the camera I have tested, the light meter I have tested, works and is in my possession all the time. So besides food, must have food in your bag somewhere, because a lot of times I get up breakfast and I don't eat until dinner. I got to have snacks somewhere. But I carry the M6 with a 35 millimeter. Now I see 35 millimeter. So as I'm looking, I can put my camera up and boom, it's 35, and it's exactly what I'm looking for. Cartier-Bresson always shot with a 50 because he saw 50 millimeters. I have the M10R, which is 40 megapixel. And I have old lenses, the f2 and a 1.4, really nice for low light. I shoot with the Mark 5, the 5D Mark IV, and I carry the 24 to 70 2.8 and the 70 to 200. A lot of people, carry that 200 2.8, but if you're, again, that's a heavy lens. That's a lot of lens for a stop of compression, that you're only going to get that compression when you do portraiture. That's an awful lot of lens to be dragging around. I have a Pro Photo flash, small flash, which comes in handy. And I have a handheld LED light. It's this big. It's the size of your cell phone. And it's got a little light on the side. It's got a little filter for warmth and for daylight. It charges instead of batteries, and it is an incredible little tiny light that saves my tail time and time again, because it's small. I can bounce it off something that's behind me. I can shoot it straight at somebody. I can backlight something, and it's all in a little container. There's a lot of them that will have, which you have to have batteries, but then you got to have batteries. And then all the cords and the batteries of digital world, it's got more cords and batteries than we know what to do with. So going into different places, this is the Dominican Republic. What goes into my lighting is preparation, research, and getting up before Mother Nature turns the lights on. We were down in Havana, and there's a harbor, and there's a nice big castle, and boats come in. Well, we're down there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Sun rises at 5 or 7, but sun rises on the other side of a hill. So by the time it gets over that hill, it's already up. So we were doing long exposure, and exposures were like 6 minutes. So if you start at 6 o'clock in the morning, every time you do a 6-minute exposure, the light has come up probably another half a stop. So every time your 6-minute exposure gets slower and slower. So if you started at 6:45, you wouldn't have had a very long exposure, even with filters. So we always prepare. When I went to Bangladesh for the first time, I heard that there's lots of water, lots of boats, but I had no idea where they were. So I got on Google Maps and I found Dhaka, Bangladesh. And I went into the satellite, and the satellite showed me exactly where the ports were, exactly where the boats were. When I got there, I found the boats. And this was just an incredible shoot. I stayed there almost half the day just photographing, getting in one of these boats and going across the river. And it was just amazing. But I would never have known it was there if I hadn't prepared before I got there. The other thing I find with lighting is some lenses, well, all lenses flare if you put them in the right direction. But the lens that I have, it's an old Canadian lens, Leica lens from my M6, and it flares differently than my friend's 35 millimeter Leica. And in shooting this, I think it made it very successful with that flare. If I had blocked that flare, which I could have very easily, I think that the story of this, the flare does a lot to hold this picture together. His lens would have flared the whole thing. I think there was something wrong with his lens, but it would have flared the whole thing. Now I know that what's going to happen when my camera flares, and I can choose to use it or not use it. And remember, I'm shooting film, so I don't see it until I get it processed. So knowing about it and have done it and seeing how it works, it helps me later. And it helps in digital because then you can see it. So you could have done this with flare and without, and you could have seen it right then and there. Putting something in the right spot, you know, this truck came by and the light was just right. And you know, the background made it pop out. Well, I was about 20 feet too far from the road. And I go, wait a second, this is a bus. Another one's going to come by in a couple minutes. Sure enough, the bus came by, but I was ready for it. And amazingly enough, they got, you know, there were so many people in this bus, the kids had to get off just to let people off. So preparation is very important. One of the best things in New York, when you come to New York, come see me. We'll do a photo walk in New York. I do those all the time. And I love the Staten Island Ferry. It's free. It's the best ride in the harbor in New York City. But this day, I don't know why, but they picked up the Statue of Liberty. So hopefully they put it back, but this day they did. But if you notice, we're at sunset. It would have been a completely different picture if it was at sunrise or at full sun over top. So the only time I go out there is when the sun is setting, because I know exactly what's going to happen. Backlit. Backlit could be a disaster, or it could work perfectly. I think that in this situation, the fact that these kids in the foreground are in the shade kind of makes this work, because they're not part of the horses, but they are observing. So it kind of gives a layer to the image. And the trees are my natural board that's stopping the flare on my lens. China, just convincing this lady to let me take her picture was enough. Having to pull out a strobe or having to pull out a light would have been I would have lost it. It wouldn't have worked. And she allowed me to photograph her. But again, as I was seeing the photograph, wanting the photograph, I moved her into the right light. Working with refugees in Jordan. These people had no idea why I was there, and I needed to bring the story home. The sparkle in her eyes is the doorway behind me. And it's extremely important to know where your light's coming from to make sure that nobody stands in the doorway and blocks your entire light. Such as this, you might say, well, that guy needs some more light on his face. But to me, the most important part is the corpse that is waiting to be washed. This is in Nepal, and he's waiting. Somebody else is off to the right washing the body. And I just feel that when he's in the darkness, he's kind of separate from the corpse. Again, your backlit, your silhouettes, How much definition do you give to the silhouette? In this case, using your raw file and processing it correctly will give you the right, and you're the artist, so you determine how much detail you're going to have in the camels in the foreground. But you also have to hold on to some of that sky also. So the other thing is I live in New York, and people say, oh, there's plenty of places to shoot in New York. Well, I've been here since 1975, and going other places is always wonderful because they're new to me. But that said, you can photograph at home just as easy. And this is Park Avenue, right in my neighborhood. And it's just a matter of watching what's going on, keeping your eyes open. 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm coming back from spending the night photographing a party, and I left, and I had my leather shoes on, no boots, nothing. Well, it had snowed, at 12 o'clock, and I was leaving at 1. But interesting enough, in that party, they had a cake, and the cake came out. It was a surprise party, and the cake came out with all the candles, and my camera jammed when I took the picture, and my strobe did not go off like it should have, and it actually saved the photograph because the candlelight lit the entire thing. So when you're in an event, shooting an event, yes, your strobe on your camera is extremely important. But a lot of times I turn that strobe off and I put my ISO up and I shoot natural light. Again, just knowing where your light is correct on the street, standing there and becoming part of the street, and sticking with your choice. Okay, the light's coming the way I want it. I'm going to stay there until something happens for me. A lot of times it doesn't happen. I move on. This is another one of those situations. I'm walking down the street and I'm 20, 30 feet away from these guys doing this. Now they're carrying this beam. The guys worked down the subway, and they were working on something in the subway that took these really big, heavy, flat beams. So it wasn't the union using too many people. It was literally that beam was extremely heavy. And they brought it over and they put it in a pile. And I go, wait a second. They did that once and they put it in the pile. They're going to go do it again. So I stood there, and sure enough, they went down the stairs and they came up with another beam. And I just held on to this. The lighting for me was just right. And I just waited for it. I shoot in the crowd all the time. And, this is a iconic Big Apple shot, with the word Big Apple in it, and the handsome calves. It's always there. And again, try stuff. This is a very difficult lighting situation. You've got all dark suits, and you've got a little girl with a very bright suit. If you just metered this situation, your meter is going to open everything up and burn that little kid out. But the thing I thought was incredible was, there must have been 1,000 fire department guys because of this funeral. And the most amazing thing was that the guy brought his kids, and the kids just had to put up with the fact that he was there for the other man. And I thought it was a very moving shot. Metro North, this is during COVID, a little bit during COVID. And, these guys don't care. They didn't, that you want to take their picture. And he just allowed me to do it. And it was a part of the car that had the lighting that I wanted. And it worked. And then the change of your own home, from year to year. New York City has changed drastically. We used to have 2 towers. We've got 1 tower. This is the Staten Island ferry that I showed you in the shot. They are now patrolled by patrol boats. But again, I go there at a certain time every time because I know the lighting. And so when this boat came by, I know it was going to be in the place I wanted it to be. So telling stories through portraits, I believe the light really, really, really makes the portrait. This is a situation where this church was extremely overlit. And my job was to show community and to do images to bring people back into the church. And so that light in the background, to me, I got into the right position so that I wasn't flaring. But to me, it gave that church feeling, that kind of mystical feeling to it. And because I felt that the women were the more important situation. Bangladesh, to me, I know my equipment incredibly well. When I do my workshops, I will talk equipment to people who need to talk equipment. And I will make sure in the beginning of the workshop that everybody knows their equipment, so that for the rest of the trip, we can talk photography. Because in a situation like this, I'm walking down the street. She opened up the back and looked at me. I didn't say anything, but I was ready. I was situated. I was there. The lighting to me worked very well. But if I was futzing with my camera, I would have missed it. Again, here, again in Bangladesh, in the schools, there's 100 kids in this room. The teacher's sitting there trying to control. You don't have much time. I in a way, I probably shouldn't have been there, but they enjoyed the fact that there was a foreigner in the room. So it was kind of a piece of education. But again, I only had 3 frames of film, 3 frames of pushing the button. That was it. So I see the situation. I recognize the light. I understand the light, and I shoot. But I also understand in a situation like this that you got to underexpose slightly, that you got to shoot raw, and that you need to pay attention to your composition. Because it wasn't just the children. It was their books. It was the wall behind them. Everything made the picture. The little boy, to me, adds a lot to the picture. And it's not just, if it was just the girl, I wouldn't have had anything else in there. I just would have had her. And again, asking her, and my camera does all the talking because English is about my only my only language, unfortunately. I asked her to move out ever so slightly to give me that separation between the foreground and the background. Again, here, I had her out in front, whereas if I had her back with the guys in the back, was in the shade, it would have just been a flat photograph. I think I look at it this way: if you don't ask, you won't get. So just ask. There's many people around the world that absolutely love their photographs taken, but they also look at you like this is a new thing, that you're some Martian from Mars. And 1 minute later, they won't even know that you were there. I was photographing these kids and they wanted to see the pictures. I showed them on the back and they go, no, 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 no. And I realized that they thought I was shooting video. So instead of doing one at a time, I spun the wheel and the pictures moved like a video. And they were happy. We had a great time. We took pictures. Always make an excuse to engage so that you can get some feeling between. Again, understanding your lighting. I was photographing inside, which is very dark, and I was shooting film. And then as I left and I stepped out, I just felt that where I put the people in the light, if they were out further, they wouldn't have had the darkness going back to them because the walls are very bright. The exposure would have been much different. It's just a little 12-year-old getting married in India. In India, they carry these huge, heavy 1,000-pound things of fruit, and they bring them into these markets. Well, I walk into the market and it's absolutely chaos, organized chaos. But I noticed there are beams of light from holes in the ceiling or from doors. And I position myself a lot of times hoping that the right person steps into that spot. Again, the man was somewhere else, and I brought him into the image. I asked him to hold the eggs. And this is the time when Sprint was doing this, the bars, how they go up. So when I came home, I'm looking at these ads and I go, well, I got this a pretty good ad for Sprint. Sitting on the back of a moped and I'm going along and I don't talk Cambodian, and I'm asking to go to the rice fields and turn around a corner and there's the rice fields. And she literally gave me 30 seconds. My exposure on my raw file was proper to get the correct lighting on her face, on her eyes. I always look at it. I do Photoshop, so I don't do I'm not a Lightroom guy, but I'm a Photoshop guy. And I can do a lot in Photoshop, but I try not to. I want to have a file that is perfect as I can get it, because then I can do a tremendous amount later with Photoshop and or Lightroom. And a lot of times I don't have to touch much of it at all because I work so hard. And that comes from the film era when you had to be exact. Again, here's a situation where there was only one door in the room and I had to get out of the door. I had to manipulate her over to that door. If not, she would have been, it was so dark in this room. It was amazing. And you got to learn to hold your camera extremely still because there's no time to set up your tripod. And I love hands. And this was in Sri Lanka. I love the light. I love the light in the background coming through the building. I loved his hands. And you know, it just worked. The West Bank, her son was in jail forever. A lot of political stuff that goes on around my photography that I stay out of because I'm the reporter. I'm the capturer. I'm the storyteller of what's going on. And there's really not anything I can do about it. I wish there was, but I've been to too many places, too many situations. And I hope that wherever I am or whatever I'm doing, if I can get a smile on someone's face because I took their picture, I feel that I've done something for them. I've given them some joy in life, and I'm not really taking anything from them. I'm not. I bring them gifts. I don't take them home and sell them for advertising, and I bring them home to get them the organization I'm working with more money to come back and help again. Just manipulating your situation without making it fake. Again, the lighting was coming from a window far up on the right, and I knew exactly where it was coming from. Even my little light would have ruined it, because I think that the lighting on the woman in the background is subdued just enough to bring out the woman with the baby. Personal projects. To me, I heard your during the first part of the meeting, you're talking about personal projects or doing things and coming up with different ideas. Absolutely fantastic idea. It's like what I do all the time. I've been to Cuba probably 30 times. Every single time I go down there, I come up with a different idea. One time I gave everybody a Cuban flag. I did 190 photographs because I gave it to whoever, and it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful project. So this is Havana, and you know, we just try things, just absolutely try things. It's in the middle of the night, and I was using a tripod on this. So choose an idea you would have fun turning into a story. It could be one image or it could be 50 image. It's your personal project. So to me, don't let anybody tell you, nah, that's a dumb idea. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, let them do that idea. Do the idea that you have, because then you learn, hey, this didn't work. I got to figure out how to do it again. This didn't work. And now eventually you go, boy, this really works. And I really, really enjoy what I'm doing. So I did, New York was absolutely horrible. I know every place else was too during COVID. And I did clapping on the streets in New York. And the nurses would come out and everybody would bang, and the noise was amazing for the nurses. And when you photograph crowds, when you photograph people in different situations, again, pay attention to the lighting. She had her flashlight on her cell phone, and the app with the candle on the other side. And it was wonderful because it lit her up perfectly and it gave me the candle. So it's a matter of paying attention and really, really watching, because things will show up right in front of you, but then you have to pay attention to your equipment before you get there. It's preparation. So I did a whole series of the clapping of all the firemen that came out and all the nurses that came out, and all the for about 14 weeks, all of the protests and the second week into the project, and it was just a personal project for myself, the nursing union contacted me, and they paid me for the first 2 weeks that I shot. And then they paid me for 14 weeks of shooting after that. And they asked me to produce a book, which I sold 1,500 copies of. So a personal project turned into just snowballed, and I had a great time doing it. And then one of the nurses gave the book to a director of another hospital downtown, and I did an entire book on that hospital. So personal projects can go a very long way. And this was, remember, clapping at 7 o'clock, luckily after daylight savings time, because in New York, the sun goes down at 4:30 in the winter, 8 o'clock in the summer. So I had from 7 o'clock to 7:10 to do photographs. And after the first 2 or 3 weeks, less and less nurses came out, and I asked, well, where are they? And they said, COVID's getting better. They didn't need as many nurses. So I had to come up with something to photograph the nurses. And I created, which I'll show you at the end here, I created a backdrop in which I was able to put everybody against. And this is no flash. This is all natural light. So part of the project, this is me, you haven't noticed it, but part of the project was the first time I came out when I was just doing myself, I took all these pictures, and normally in these situations, people don't get pictures. No, the photographers don't come back. Well, I quickly ran them off on a Xerox kind of printer. And I brought them back the next day, and I walked up to one of their nurses and I said, do you know who these nurses are? And they flipped out. They were so amazed and surprised. Over the 14 weeks, I gave them 2,500 images, and they wallpapered the walls of the hospital with them. And as I kept giving them, people were allowed to take them off of the wall and keep the photographs. So it was a very much a give back situation. So this is on the upper right here is the streets in New York, which were completely empty, which never are. And I put up a felt, not a felt, but a fabric that had no reflection whatsoever backdrop up, and I just clamped it to luckily there was some scaffolding there, and I just brought the nurses in front and shot them. Some of them I had to work on the background, but most of them were just well, if I ran out of backdrop, I would have to add some backdrop. And it was very, very easy to put up and very simple, very simple. And so then I did the Gay Pride Parade, and I used the same lighting situation and the same backdrop. On this situation, I have one of those collapsible reflector silks, and I had a friend of mine hold the silk over top, which I've shot with 20 by 24 foot silks, and they're absolutely wonderful for creating light beautiful light, but they also open up your backdrop because it's cutting the light. But this was a silk, a small silk, and it just gave absolutely gorgeous light. And I had to worry about these ladies and guys showed off. So I got plenty of photographs out of this, great costumes and great dress. It was wonderful. And this is where a situation is. I think that if you use the flash on this situation, first of all, you'd have a problem with your backdrop. But also, you never knew what the outfit was being worn. It was from, lightness on what he's wearing in the back, to skin tone, to everything else. So you kind of had to come up with a lighting situation that kind of would cover everything. So then I've been doing the Cuban artist out of Cuba, and I'm going into each one of their studios, photographing them and trading them photographs for their art. And I've come back with some absolutely amazing art, and that will be my next book. And every studio that I went into was different. Because not only do you have to light up your subject, but you've got to light up your composition. So when I'm on location, I always find a great vantage point and then wait to see what happens. Capturing repeatable moments always comes up, which is absolutely wonderful. This is a window that I passed. I used to have a studio down in the 20s, and for 10 years I went past this window. And about the first year, I photographed these two guys sitting in the window. For 10 years, I did not see this photograph again until two ladies are sitting in the exact same window in the exact same place. And of course they were in the correct lighting because they were sitting up against the window close enough. So I had the daylight outside feeding the light to the people. And then there was a company of that's still there, but they're scaffolding now, cosmetic company that would do ads, and their ads were like this. And there was about a story and a half photograph that they would put in the corner of the window. And this was another project. I would walk home this way and pass this corner. So for 2 years, every month, they would change the photograph. And again, you had to learn when the right light was going to hit these things at the right time, because this is looking to the southeast. Well, at sunset, it's dark or it's night. So you had to be there at the right time. Otherwise, your lighting was not right. And then again, like in the beginning with the 10-year gap, moments repeat. This moment repeated in 30 seconds. This is in Paris in front of Notre Dame. And then in India, as I'm walking down the street, I see these guys coming through the crowd Well, the lighting was perfect for them. And I put a long lens on, and they're not stopping and waiting for me. They're coming through the crowd, and I'm putting them in. Waiting for them to walk into my light, and I'm taking pictures. And the color of their wraps are coming from the different tribes they were coming from. It was a big camel fair that they were all coming to. And then, again, this was luckily the light was the way it needed to be to photograph the crazy things that happen in life around you. Like the beginning, what is he going to do if he didn't convince his friends? He's on right behind him, a foot behind him is the water. So he really had no place to go. And then find something, find a corner of light, find a streak of light, and just stand and just wait for it. And as you notice, the light starts moving closer and closer. The shadow starts moving closer and closer to the door. So as you get later in the day, the light moves faster. Especially in the morning, the light moves very fast when you're sunrise. But when your sunset, that golden hour, it's called a golden hour because it doesn't last very long. So you pick a situation and you hope that you've picked the right one for your subject to drop into. Don't forget your composition, though. Hold your composition. And then we just lucked out on this as we're driving back to Delhi. These guys would overload their tuk-tuks, which was highly illegal, but it was made for great images and great, you can make a story out of the craziness. But luckily it was lit from the right side. Probably if it was lit from the other side, we'd have problems with being able to see into the cars or to see the faces. And of course, he's telling me not to take the picture because then he's going to get in trouble for doing exactly what he's doing. So capturing the moment is one of those decisive, hopefully you all know about Cartier-Bresson, that decisive moment. And to me, what type of image, you should ask yourself, what type of image gets you to raise your camera? For me, it's those images that make me laugh, or that are just like, you can't write a script any better than this. It's just like, you can't tell a story. The story is there, and it just makes you laugh. And it's like, why is this lady there all in her mink coming out of it looks like a cemetery behind? You just can't make it up. In Vienna, this is a tough situation because normally you'll get yourself in a reflection. Well, this just happened to be, I could be back far enough from it, so my reflection didn't go in, and there wasn't dark enough behind where my reflection would have been in the window, because it would have ruined the shot. And it was film, so it would have been even harder to retouch it properly. Walking down the streets looking for that, this is in Cairo, looking for that right moment where everything fits from the right side of the composition to the left. Pakistan, this guy was waiting for a guy to bring him coal, and he would throw it up on top of the wall behind. They were doing bricks, making bricks, and the camels would be, the donkeys would be loaded with these heavy bricks. And I was photographing him, and all of a sudden I realized that this donkey kept coming in, and I go, wait a second, now my light's right. I've got it lit on his face correctly. The light is, the sun is doing what I want. It's a nice color. Let me wait for that donkey to step into the right spot. again, waiting for, you've got the light right, waiting for your subject to drop where you want it to drop. And this might not be exactly where somebody else, maybe they'd want it back here, but this was my artist choice. I chose to put her there. And this was the shot of the woman holding the wheat in her hand with the hat. This was just before it. I asked the guy, when are we going to see rice fields? And we come around the corner, and I thought Spielberg was shooting a film, because I mean, this wagon is probably, 150 years old. The monks in Bhutan, again, it's that backlit situation, holding as much of the color to give it some detail, but not too much to blow it out. Oops. And then this, to me, was the lighting was great, dude. I didn't see anything else to do here, and I wanted to take his picture. I couldn't talk Turkish, but I'm standing there, and he reaches into one of these buckets and pulls out, which turned out to be a jalapeno pepper that was hotter than you could imagine. And he gives it to me as I'm asking, can I take the picture? So I bite on the thing, and my eyes are tearing like crazy as I'm trying to take the picture, because I knew I had my lighting correct and I needed the picture, but I needed to respect the fact that he gave me a gift. And my eyes are just tearing. Thank God for autofocus. And again, backlit. You got to be careful of your flare. You got to make sure you're focused correctly. You've got to have your shutter speeds correct. And I keep coming back to that doorway. There was a window down on the woman that was doing at the blackboard, but there was a window off to my right, a doorway that I had come in. And you've got to make sure that if you're there with a group, if you're there with other people, that they don't stand in the way, because it would have totally destroyed the light. And in this situation, in order to get the way it is looking here in the background, I would not have been able to use a strobe. If I had used a strobe in this situation, it would have gotten too much commotion looking at me, and I would have missed the shot and the little boy over here, because all these kids would have ignored the teacher and had come to me, and I wouldn't have been able to capture this. 50 miles an hour down the road. You got to try it. If you don't try it, luckily the light was correct. We were going into the sun. I'm from New York, and in the 70s, we had all the painted trains. And this is in a train station in Belgium. And I'm photographing the color on the train. I'm photographing, and all of a sudden the train starts to move. And I hadn't quite finished the shot, and all of a sudden she leans forward to kiss the guy. So to me, that was the decisive moment. Before, it was just a picture of the side of the train. And again, how do you light this? It's inside, but it's lit. It's lit really nice. So I guess what I'm saying is to bring Mother Nature with you, and you can do a tremendous amount of lighting. I'm driving down the road in India, and we're looking at a lot of different things, and they weren't working. And then I saw this guy with his herd, and the light just worked. So I got out of the car and I convinced him to let me take the picture. And the only thing that kept changing was the camels in the background. And but there were so many other situations that they just weren't working. We just drove by them. Other projects are medical projects, where I'll follow doctors. This again is a doorway that nobody stood in. You know, his shirt is my reflector. The light, to me, the light coming in from the window and doing the reflection on there and giving a darker situation there, I think it works wonderfully, and able to use the natural light. Because there's a lot of situations, if you ever have the chance, and I've taken people on medical missions as a workshop, it will take your photography to the next 3 levels because of the complications that you run into, the nervousness that you run into, the fact that you don't like what's going on. This was in the West Bank, and the doctor was this 26-year-old doctor, and the girl had a dead kidney, and the other kidney was failing. And white guy told this Palestinian who was dressed to the nines, and the mother was in a full burqa. He told the father that he's going to try to save his daughter. And the daughter came out and he saved her. And all of the political, all of the hate, all of the whatever between countries is totally gone. And he absolutely loved us. And he showed us tremendous respect because we had saved his daughter. And as a photographer, not only do you have to get the situation lit correctly, you have to be very polite, you have to be very respectful, and you have to shoot fast, and you have to bring back the story. Again, if you did not know that the light that the doctor uses in an OR is 4 stops at least more than the room light, you're in big trouble. And it's very hard in the places I've been to make a whole lighting around this. So trying to he's listening after the urologist put in the tube. I mean the anesthesiologist put in the tube. He's listening for the breathing to be correct before he does the operation. And I don't know if this is any special lighting, but a Down syndrome baby looking at his mother in full burqa, and a full burqa mother looking at his Down syndrome baby, I think is just 2 worlds that are colliding. But she was not going to let go of that child. And the usual, no, you count to 100. No, you count to 100. No, trying to put the baby to sleep. A lot of the times, and they don't always work, I just try. I try to see what's going to happen with the lighting. And a lot of times it works a lot better than you thought. Shooting a funeral in Bangladesh, you have to worry about all these people are scrutinizing the hell out of you, and you got to come back with the story. So Cuba is another place that I've been a lot, and I've done a lot of work there. And the lighting is absolutely beautiful down there. And so this is your beautiful sunrise, straight on, done at the time where they can actually open their eyes. This is working with backlit. which is again rather technical if your model is not paying attention to your instructions. And then backlit again, just on a situation that you have absolutely no control over. And in this situation, wanting the person working with the tobacco to be sharp and no flare, but you're getting your light from a flared window. So to me, it's okay for this to be flared as long as this is sharp over here. This, to me, the flare kind of shows you the story of the being in the tobacco barn, which has minimal light. And I've actually taken this little thing here and lit up things in the tobacco barn, and it saved our life because there's some places just no light, and the just enough light just opened it up. This is one of those situations where I really wanted this shot, but your background and your foreground, and I was able to save it in RAW and to do a little manipulation on the sky, but not much. But it was because my RAW file had the information in it when I shot it. So I go back again to make sure your lighting is correct, and that your exposure is correct in the camera. You know, what do you expose for? You expose for the, the lighting is working because it's exposing the different aspects of the people in the car. And again, your exposure's got to be just right. Sometimes things such as clothing actually makes or breaks the photograph. So a lot of the light is coming through this clothing, and some of this light clothing is actually lighting up your subject. Because if you see the guy in the background, he's more open lit than the guy here is darker. She stood there for 5 minutes for me. I photographed her in color and in black and white. She was still sitting there when I left. And the dog was still doing the same thing too. And, I don't shoot a lot of landscape, but there's a town and towns all over the place will do this in Trinidad, where for their birthday, they painted the town. And you could stand in this situation, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's no shadow, and the shadow will creep up the wall, and then it will creep down, and then it will creep even further up. So all day long, you could take this exact same picture, framing a different picture 50 times because the light just keeps moving, and that's absolutely wonderful. And just knowing when to be there again is very important. Again, just trying things. I was hoping that the light was going to hold on her, and it did. So our social media is Bruce Byers and Camera Odysseys. Please follow me. I'd love to, see what you guys do. I'll follow you back. Check out. It's a great way to see photography. I put different things up, whatever I'm doing, no rhyme or reason, just to kind of show images from different things. This again was like we were talking about, was a project. A friend of mine, this guy in the lower right on the left, he's the owner of the place, and he allowed me to come there once a day and put somebody in there. We'd pick someone off the street, and have them hold the daily news up. And it gave me a place. It would be like about 3:30 in the afternoon. Up, got to go to the newsstand every day. I got probably 300 of them, and all different people, all different times. And Ernie Anastas, he held the daily news, but he works for the Post, so he had to hold them both. So a little political correctness there on him. And you know, the craziness of Cuba. So we do workshops all the time. As I was saying, we do workshops in New York. I would love to do more of these talks with you guys. You come up with a subject, I'll research it. I'll work, you know, from my history, from my experience. I'll put something together. I'll work with you individually. You guys can teach me Lightroom. I'll teach you some Photoshop. And I don't know, just haven't gotten into Lightroom yet. So our next big trip is in India, and I'm working with Travel Gigs, my Travel Gigs, and he's been to this part of India working for the tourist board, so he really knows the area. It's a lot of portraiture, a lot of landscape, so it's a wonderful place to go. We're always doing Cuba, the entire Cuba. We spent 3 times this year in Cuba and traveled all the way across the country. Ran out of gas a couple times, but electricity went a little bit. So, but some great photographs. Going to Nepal and into Bhutan. And then we do stuff at home. This is in Old Line, Connecticut, which is just outside of New York City. And again, we do New York City. You come up with the ideas, I'll make it happen. Or I'll just lead you to parts of New York City that you probably never seen before. And I can also come down and visit my brother, and we can do a photo walk in Atlanta. You guys can show me some places to shoot. That's the presentation. I really thank you guys for doing this. I enjoy talking photography. A lot of people like to, you know, say, "Oh, you're a photographer. Oh, can you tell me what kind of camera to buy?" And I go, or "I've got a camera. Can you fix, you know, I don't know how to use it." Well, I don't know every camera that's out there. I can eventually figure it out, but you know, there are cameras that the camera tech can't figure out. How am I supposed to figure it out? But give me a Leica or give me a Canon, we can do pretty good, or a Hasselblad. But you know, photography is an art. Keep it as an art. Try to look 360 degrees. Pay attention to that entire canvas. It's like a painter. When a painter paints, he doesn't just paint in the center. He paints the entire canvas. As photographer is no different. The upper right-hand corner is as important as the lower left. And the lighting is what's going to bring the subject to you or take the subject away from you. So it's incredibly important. So
Bruce,
that's me.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed the program and presentation. Just wondered if anybody's got any questions. Or did you explain it so clearly that nobody has a question?
There's a question in chat.
Question in chat.
Mm-hmm.
When I am on one of your workshops, is it sitting in a room looking at photos, or are we shooting all the time? Oh, that's from your friend.
That's my friend. Yep, he's always we're always interested in letting people know when I'm on a photo workshop. There's a lot of photo workshops that have you in a room looking at photographs and trying to figure out how to manipulate them and everything. And I always wonder, you've traveled to the other side of the world. Why aren't you outside taking pictures? And now with the digital camera, I can watch the back of your camera. When you take a picture and I see that it's out of focus, I can go, wait a second, your camera's, there's something wrong here. Oh yeah, my autofocus isn't right. Okay, now take a picture. I'd rather correct the pictures when you're taking than correct them, not be able to correct them 4 hours later. And that's what we were talking about. You got to prepare. There's a lot of times where we'll shoot late at night and our ISOs will be really high. And the next morning, we'll leave breakfast, and the very first thing I'll say is check your ISO. And people will say, what are you asking me that for? And then they'll look down at their camera and they'll realize it's full sun and their ISO is 4,000. And it takes about a day to understand that we don't want to talk cameras all the time, but I am going to be there to check you out. I actually had a group once, and we had a cruise ship coming into the harbor, and the cruise ship's up, and there's a castle behind it, so the juxtaposition was really great. But the cruise ship was only going to be there for 5 seconds before it's covered, and I said, okay, and we had 30 minutes to prepare for it. Sure enough, there was five people standing there, and they all started asking questions. So I grabbed the person's camera, took the picture. So at least later they could have a picture that would work. And then we would say, okay, guys, what you do wrong? And the basic was, I didn't check my ISO. I didn't check my autofocus. I had the wrong lens on. And basically they didn't prepare. So there's always time to prepare. And it just makes for a great workshop, makes for great, because we get to talk photography. I have a bookshelf that is probably got 400 books in it of photographers from the turn of the century. And I was going through it the other day because I had some duplicates to sell the duplicates and clean them up. And I sit there and go, I should look at this library more often, because it's my education. It's my inspiration. I'm not going to sit there and copy what they're doing, but it just gives me an idea. Hey, that's interesting lighting. Let me try that the next time I have someone in front of my camera. And it just elevates your thought pattern. It elevates your excitement. It gives you something to work for. So very, very, very hands-on all the time.
Great, I appreciate that. Anybody else? I think that's it, Bruce. We sure do appreciate it.
I truly enjoyed it.
Yep, excellent. It's always great to do these. So, if you ever have an idea you want to talk about, if you have individual, I'm working on doing a monthly something or another. Hey, something happened the other day on the photo shoot, and it might be a camera problem or a photograph that I chased after and took me 5 minutes to shoot, or it took me an hour to shoot, but just like little things. So I'll send you some links as to when we're doing that. And I'll look at can you send me the link